relatively few fathers take paternity leave.
And a man's been arrested after a cross-border pursuit this morning. A vehicle failed to stop for Gardaí at the Fermanagh-Cavan border at around 10:15. A stinger device was deployed by PSNI officers and they chased the man. A 29-year-old was arrested on suspicion of possession of a Class A controlled drug, failing to stop for police, dangerous driving and other motoring offences. He's being held in the north. It's 3:02.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. Download the new AA app to request a roadside rescue and track the patrol right to your car.
More showers across Munster and Connacht, with some drifting into East Leinster too. Dry otherwise, with clear spells and top temperatures today of 6 to 9 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 o'clock in the company of the former Republic of Ireland defender Gary Breen, the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward, and the football correspondent of the Irish Independent Dan McDonnell. Speaking about the beautiful game here between now and 5 o'clock, just let you know in the rugby, it's Ireland 6, Scotland 9 in that Nations Cup match at Lansdowne Road. 2 Johnny Sexton penalties, but Ireland are in arrears. In the Premier League earlier on, it finished Burnley 1, Everton 1. Robbie Brady putting Burnley in front before Dominic Calvert-Lewin equalised for Everton, earning them a point with his 11th goal of the season, the top scorer in the division. Let's hear now from Robbie Brady, who was speaking after the game to BT.
Robbie, that was a point, but a very tough point. Do you think you should have got more?
I think we both had chances. Played a good one at the end, and Popey made an incredible save, but it's no shock to any of us. He does it every day. He's incredible. But yeah, I thought we had some chances. We probably could have put it away, and then yeah, we'll take the point that day that was in. It was a tough fought game, and I thought the lads stood up and done very well.
You're still looking for another league win, just the one all season so far, but that's not a reflection on the performance today, was it?
No, I felt like we performed well today, and it was a bit more like us. So once we're all pushing in the same direction, we can we know we have it in us. We've done it season in, season out, so we'll stick at it, and please God, there's more wins to come.
Well, it was a great start. Early goal from yourself, precious goal as well.
Yeah, no, it's always nice to get on the score sheet. I'm better so early, you know, it helps you settle in and bed into the game nice. But disappointed to concede.
Worst possible time just before half-time. Well, not the worst possible time, but no help, was it?
No,
different talk at half-time, I'd imagine.
No, that's it, yeah, it's different. It would have been better to go in at half-time 1-up, but these things happen now. And like I said, we both had chances throughout the game, and I thought we stuck at it well and possibly could have nicked it, but I think a point in the end we'll take.
You've been in a few relegation scraps through the years with Hull and Norwich, and they haven't come off the worst on it, but compare that to this Burnley side.
I think it's different, you know what I mean? When first season we went down, we had a season in the Premier League, and then in the second season with Hull we went down, and first season with Norwich, so I think it's just that learning and getting the understanding in the Premier League and knowing what it's about. Because it does creep up on you when you don't get them points, the draws, the wins. It soon creeps up on you, and you find yourself at that latter stage of the season. It's very tough. But like I said, we've done it for a number of years now and bedded in well. And I think we've got more than enough to get the job done.
Robbie Brady there speaking after Burnley's 1-1 draw with Everton. Our football coverage brought to you with thanks to Paddy Power. For more information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. So you can watch, as well as listening on News Talk, you can watch us on the social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off The Ball, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on the OTB Sports app. Search OTB Sports in your app store now to download it for iOS and Android. Good afternoon, lads. Gary, Robbie Brady, I've always felt is one of the most naturally talented players we have, if not the most naturally talented. Great to see him back in the Burnley team and scoring today.
No, it is. It really is. Bearing in mind that he's kind of forced his way back into that Irish squad after the difficulties with injuries and stuff. So it is great to see him back. I know his contract's up this summer, I believe. Difficult times at Burnley. Bearing in mind they're down the bottom. The question asked to them, will they be able to cope? Bearing in mind that Brady's been in relegation dogfights. But he's right. Burnley are established at this level. Sean Dyche is approaching or has probably gone past 200 Premier League games as a manager. But it's so difficult for him because I think he's a brilliant manager in terms of what he's done. But there's still no clarity in terms of what's happening with Burnley. And is there a takeover? Is the money coming in? And it must be so difficult for him because he's always trying to fight these big guns with little or no investment. But he does a brilliant job at it, Sean Dyche.
You always wonder if maybe there's a shelf life for Sean Dyche or an Eddie Howe. There's only so much you can do with these clubs before it ends up that they get relegated. Manchester City,
Well,
by the
listen.
way, 1-0 up.
So already?
Yeah, Raheem Sterling. It's going to be a long afternoon for Fulham, I think.
Yeah, and in terms of the improvements, Fulham recently, the new signings that are coming on loan, Loftus-Cheek, they've got a bit more quality, Fulham, but it's a big ask for them today at Man City. But yeah, certainly, I think it is difficult. I think timing is everything in football. I think Eddie Howe probably stayed a little bit too long at Bournemouth. But I think if Sean Dyche was to suddenly become available, I think you'd have a lot of clubs trying to get hold of him as their manager.
Yeah, Dan, Johnny, hope you're well. Good afternoon for Robbie Brady. Good to see an Irish player continuing in the vein that Caoimhín Kelleher started during the week.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good for, it's great for, and it's good for Ireland at all, but I think it's really good just for Robbie Brady personally as much as anything, because, you know, I've been in probably a couple of interviews with Robbie Brady, and it's almost like, as in the last couple of years, and it's like the same interview again and again. It's a polite way of saying, well, what's happened, or tell us about your latest injury. And no matter how well you're doing in life and Premier League wages and all this stuff, and, you know, it's all grand and all, but, like, I'm sure it's eating away at him the whole time, you know, and, like, you can see that frustration in every interview he's done. You can tell it's just niggling away at him the whole time. And with Ireland, he's come over, and managers basically, they've been slow to trust him because of his recent injury record. I think that was the case with Mick McCarthy, and I think even while he's very much in Stephen Kenny's plans and he's been involved in most of the games, you've seen him being taken off at times, and probably a bit for, you know, it's a massive frustration for him, and because he is, as you say, like, he's one of our most talented players, and for whatever reason, since Euro 2016, just things haven't really happened for him at all. And as Gary mentioned, he's in the last year of his contract at Burnley. They basically exercised an option, I think, and there was almost a fear that, like, he was being kept because of almost Burnley's situation. They weren't going to let him go, but he wasn't necessarily always going to play either, which is, you know, potentially a wasted year in a career for a fella if that doesn't come to pass. But actually, like, in fairness, I think when he has been fit, Sean Dyche has shown a willingness to use him. It's just been that injury that he's had, or injuries, because it's been a couple of different ones. And I just hope now he can get a run. You know, he can get a 6, 7, 8, 9 game run, and even just forget even the Irish stuff now. Even just for him, I think just for his, you know, for his own confidence and his own happiness, his career, because no matter how strong-willed you are, I think the run he's had probably has affected him a bit.
It's 11-9 to Ireland and the Rugby at half-time. Keith Earls with the try. It was really heartening, I thought, Johnny, to see Kelleher during the week and the assurance that he gave. I know, look, I don't think we can get carried away, but it's a good sign.
Yeah, a few green shoots, I think, from an Irish perspective. Obviously, as Dan says, like, from a personal point of view, you just want Robbie Brady to have a bit of a run of games, and I think he's done pretty well for Ireland in trying enough circumstances. But I think, like, almost as significant as Kelleher was, just I thought how well Connolly played against Liverpool last weekend for Brighton. You know, he missed a sitter, but he set up a penalty, and I thought he looked sharp. So between Kelleher and Robbie Brady scoring today, and obviously you know, Connolly doing well, I think there were green shoots. Kelleher's performance, I mean, you know, he's been involved in sort of high-scoring games. You know, the odd game, he had 4 or 5 games for Liverpool in the League Cup sort of before that. And it was a big opportunity for him, but, like, a lot of responsibility taken on Ajax, who really should have gotten something out of the game in Amsterdam when they clashed, and are a very good side. And this was a really good test, and he doesn't have Van Dijk ahead of him. It's a Liverpool team that's kind of still really reeling from all the injuries they've had and trying to keep the whole thing together whilst fighting, you know, war on a couple of fronts, Champions League and the league. And I mean, the only danger here really is that you can get carried away with it, because you know, he made such a range of saves as well. He looked incredibly comfortable. There was one time where he kind of misjudged the fly of the ball, missed it, and I think it was given as an offside, and he probably slightly got away with that one. But overall, you know, I read Dennis Hurley had an interesting piece in the Times then a couple of days later about his background, and just talking to some of his, you know, the Cork-based coaches, and how they just say how grounded he is. And there's a lovely kind of anecdote as well that he'll still come back to games and pay his £2 at the gate to watch them play. And I just thought he looked like somebody who'd worked with Alisson as well, who just looked like he was really comfortable on the ball. And you saw with the Ajax keeper as well, who was ludicrously comfortable on the ball at times, how important, just in that game itself, how important that aspect of the game is. But I think it was really promising, and we'll probably talk a bit more about this maybe today or again in terms of Brexit and young players going over like he did when he was younger, because you have the situation of Kelleher, who's obviously being coached at like the best level you can get in the world, and it's culminated in him now keeping the Champions League clean sheet, an Irish goalkeeper doing that for the first time, whatever. And then you have Gavin Bazuna, who's come through Shamrock Rovers but has played senior football in Ireland, and by all accounts could even be every bit as promising as Kelleher, if not more. But it was really nice to see. And I think as much as I would like to, as much as I'd like that people follow the League of Ireland more, I'm not losing sight of the fact that there's a strong connection with Liverpool in this country, and I'm sure for Liverpool-based Irish fans, Ireland-based Liverpool fans, to see an Irish player doing that well was great for them as well, and promising times ahead. And I suppose the other thing, JD, is if Alisson does get injured, which there's every chance that'll happen, where does that leave him? And is he, in some respects, the fact that he seems to have gone ahead of Adrian, is this a good or a bad thing? Because obviously he probably won't be going out on loan now.
Well, he's going to be playing against Wolves tomorrow by all accounts. He is number 2 at the moment. Gary, would you, if you're Caoimhín Kelleher, would you be staying at Liverpool now and being Alisson's understudy at 22 years of age, or should you be trying to get out on loan? What's the best pathway for him, do you think?
Well, I think a bit of both, really. It's about timing in terms of how many games he gets, but I agree with what the lads are there. I think sometimes we can build these young players and put so much pressure on them, but this is warranted for this boy, because for Jurgen Klopp, in a game that he built as one of the most pressurised games, bearing in mind the amount of injuries that they've had, to give him the nod over someone like Adrian was incredible. And the reason he did it was because of his footballing ability. So we talk about Alisson, but Caoimhín's been doing this for the under-21s. We've seen the way Stephen Kenny wants to play out from the back. We know, and we've seen him do it so comfortably. We've heard now the backstories that he was a brilliant goal scorer in his youth. So he can look after the football, and that is a modern requirement of today's goalkeeper. It's probably one of the first things they look at, and then afterwards say, well, can he make saves? Well, we saw just that as well. And I'm seeing him, even the difference between his penalty saves against Arsenal in the League Cup, you can see that little bit of core strength is coming now, because it's not there as a young goalkeeper to begin with. I remember playing with Chris Kirkland at Coventry in the Premier League prior to him getting his move to Liverpool, and they don't have that core strength at that young age. They can look a little bit like a foal in terms of all limbs and stuff like that. But he has that confidence. He has that type of mindset to be able to cope with that. And everyone's talking about going out to get games. And yes, you need that. You need to be playing as regularly as you can to get your eye in. But just think about the quality that he's actually facing in training. Coming up against these guys in shooting sessions, in practice games. I think his development is best served in and around that Liverpool squad. But there will be a time, of course there will, where you'll think he needs to start playing regular games. The biggest question now for me is that he's suddenly gone from number 3 to number 2 at Liverpool. He's going to be threatening Darren Randolph, who's made no errors for us, who's been a great servant for us. But he's a number 2 at West Ham as well. So this ties this up a little bit. There's real competition now for that goalkeeping start.
I wish we had a competition around the whole Royal Ireland pitch, 1 to 11. Dan, you've been charging...
The other thing, JD, just to mention, it probably looks a bit easier than it is for a goalkeeper to be comfortable on the ball. And if you see through Adrian, it's not easy at all. The level of pressing in the game at the moment, for Kelleher to be that confident on the ball, as Gary said, he was an outfielder, as so many goalkeepers were earlier in his life. But for him to have the coolness in a game of that magnitude against a good side, to just have that self-belief, to be able to pass the ball like he did, I thought that was hugely encouraging, because he really didn't have the experience to do that as comfortably as he did, and he probably made it look an awful lot easier than it is. And as the modern game develops, not so much to the extent maybe of the football kick out in Gaelic games, but the keeper, if you're not good on the ball, it's a negative against you, and he looks like he'll be absolutely grand in that regard.
I made the point during the week, I mentioned it in a piece, JD, that back in, I think it was like 5 years ago, there was a couple of us that interviewed Caoimhín Kelleher. He was 16. He was just doing his junior start, and he was going to Liverpool full time that summer. Although I think he'd been over and back a bit, but he was still living at home at that stage. And he was a really shy lad, and as you would expect, and I think he still is to some degree. He's not sort of a brash character or anything. And really softly spoken answers. But at that stage, even when you asked him about what type of keeper, you know, he saw himself being. And like, he was so clear and so firm in his answer, and how he modelled himself on Manuel Neuer, but then spoke about how he had to be good with the ball at his feet. He said, to be a modern goalkeeper, you have to be that way. And he said, you know, there's no point just kicking the ball away. And like, it's funny, like, they were just innocent enough words or whatever, a 16-year-old, but it's almost, you can imagine, and even Gary alludes to it there, it's exactly the type of things that the modern manager wants to hear, that maybe Stephen Kenny wants to hear, that Jurgen Klopp, who at the time wasn't even at Liverpool, wants to hear. That he almost arrived to the club and found that there was a goalkeeper coming through the ranks who probably ticked a lot of the boxes for what they wanted. And that's why, you know, over the last couple of years, there has always been vibes that Kelleher is genuinely rated. And again, sometimes like we want to hear that about the Irish players, and we seize on the positive. But like, again, as Gary mentions, like, I think sometimes, yeah, we get a bit carried away, but like, that was a huge game watched worldwide during the week, a really high stakes game. And like, he was cool as a breeze, you know, and it's a fantastic thing to see. And he was meant to go on loan to Holland this year. That was the plan, until Alisson's sort of injury position became clear, in the sense that you know, they needed him around the place. And I would be of the view now that there shouldn't be any urgency for him to sort of get out of there or anything like that. Like, at worst case scenario, he's second choice keeper, and the situations and the experience he's going to be around in the next year or so is going to be fantastic for him. You know, it's going to be fantastic for his development. And he is only 22, and in goalkeeping terms, like, that's okay. I mean, yeah, there comes a time where it becomes pressurised, but again, as Gary mentioned, I mean, it's not as if his Irish rival, and of course that's not going to be his priority, because he's trying to establish and make a career for himself, but his Irish rival isn't playing either. So, and with Alisson's record, you can imagine that Liverpool aren't going to overface him. You know, you can imagine that, you know, in cup competitions, you know, the Deadwater Champions League game next week, and where there's an opportunity, I don't think they're going to risk Alisson. So, you know, he could play 5-6 games between now and March, and that could be more than Randolph.
The psychological boost of having somebody behind you, Gary, as a centre half that you can trust and that you're assured by must be massive.
It's huge, but it's not even about trusting him as a goalkeeper. If you have a template in terms of how you want to play, and you want to play it from the back, I think Adrian is a solid, reliable goalkeeper. But you can't play it from the back from him. It's as simple as that. And we've seen that if Liverpool want to play that way, and teams want to maybe press Adrian, which they would do, then does he have the ability to clip those balls into space? And Caoimhín makes it make it look effortless at times. And there's a flip side of it as well, because with Stephen Kenny, if he wants to play that way, Darren Randolph in one of the games was totally ignoring Shane Duffy, just would not give him the ball. So he was dropping the ball, and they were a little bit mixed in terms of how often he was completing that pass. So the whole complexion changes, certainly as a centre-half. If I give my the pass back to the goalkeeper, and I'm suddenly worried that he's not going to be able to clip the ball, I'm not going to fan out as much. I'm not going to get in those more expansive positions. I'm going to narrow up. And then ultimately then the whole game plan is affected. So I think exactly what Dan said there. We are very, very quick to build up any Ireland players making an impact in the best league in the world. But I think this boy looks the real deal. I really do. And I love hearing Dan. It's great when Dan gets to meet these players and talk, you know, quite openly with them, gets a sense of their mindset more than anything. Because I think more than anything, if you want to play for an elite level club like Liverpool or Manchester United back in the day, yeah, talent is great. It will get you there, but it won't keep you there. That mental strength will keep you there. And if he's got that at this young age already, then he looks like he's got a great future ahead of him.
This Brexit thing, then, we saw this ruling from FIFA yesterday, Dan, about under-18s not being able to go to England. 16s and 17-year-olds can do it at the moment. I think 30 to 50 a year do. How damaging is this? What are the implications? Is there anything we can do around the common travel area with it? Yeah,
well, like, there's two ways of looking at this, JD. I mean, I understand why people say damaging, and I do get it. And the problem here, and the issue we have here, is that this has been floated for a while as something that might happen, and we're not ready for it, basically. And that's a massive frustration. Like, this is sort of years of sort of flaws catching up with you. because in many respects this should be a wonderful opportunity for the sport in this country. But you know, me and Johnny, I suppose, as people are very passionate about League of Ireland, we relish any kind of opportunity that will have better players here and really encourages people to, you know, get the, you know, to actually spend on the right stuff, spend on academies, get world class, well, you know, high level academies here, you know, spend on really good coaches. And you see a handful of clubs and places doing that. But we're probably, unfortunately, just not equipped at this stage to take a Caoimhín Kelleher at 16 or an Aaron Connolly or whoever it might be and bring them to the level that they've got to at the moment. And of course, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. As Johnny mentions, Gavin Bazunu, and there's loads of examples, Seamus Coleman, people who needed the time. But for the sort of the best of the best, like it's a slight issue now. Now, in fairness, we may see them going to Germany and to other countries, and you know, Kevin Zeffi is one of the starlets at the moment, and Inter Milan very seriously looking at him as an option, and there's a few other players, and it's possible that the elite of the elite will still go, or they'll find a way, or families will get moved over, or something like that. So, but it's a strange one, this, because I spoke to some people involved in like an academy football earlier this week who said that they've been inundated with calls from English clubs over the past week because they had been told, they had been given the go-ahead at their level from their legal departments, I think, that no, you will be able to sign players from Ireland still at 16 after Brexit. And yet, last night, we see a ruling which suggests that FIFA won't be, information that suggests FIFA won't be putting that in. I still don't think we've heard the last of it. I still think there'll be some kind of legal challenge or test case taken around it. But it's a funny one because I know it's a slightly long answer, but there's sort of layers to the answer, right? See, it could also be very damaging if the status quo remained in the environment we face into now, because what you might then see is actually more Irish kids going over, way more, to almost fill slots left by the EU players who can't go. And you might have a situation where a lot of lads who aren't ready get brought over to fill gaps. And that's something that we've seen in recent years at times, that we see the odd club in England just filling spots in the academy, taking kids over, probably knowing they're not ready, taking a chance. And that is really stunting for their personal development in life. They don't finish their education, they go away from home. And so we have to strike the right balance here, in that we want the best to go away still because we're not ready to keep them. But we can't have the mass exodus that we traditionally have because we need to get our structures better at home. But if anything should focus minds, around the development of young players in Ireland and all the infighting and the battles and the tribal sort of stuff between patches, and and everyone is right in a way because everyone has been wronged in the past to some degree. But this is where Rude Doctor and the various people, if this comes to be the case, if this comes to pass, we have to do something better here, and that involves funding, it involves government, it involves everything, and we're coming off the back of a very bruising decade, which makes it harder. But this shouldn't be damaging. But I understand why people think it will be, and that's because we're not ready to cope with this. But it should be an opportunity. But sadly, there's a tale of sadness that maybe, in the short term anyway, it may cause problems. Long term, it could be fantastic, but that requires serious focus. And you wouldn't be encouraged by a lot of things you hear at the moment as regards that.
OK, 53106, enjoying the show, folks. When Alisson arrived, Kelleher was immediately put into pre-season training with them, but Liverpool have got another young Brazilian goalkeeper coming through, hoping Kelleher stays, though. We got to take a break. Back to talk about the World Cup draw, which is on Monday, and Manchester United's defeat during the week on this 53106 if you want to get involved in the text. Back after this.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
This weekend on News Talk, we've teamed up with Hidden Hearing to reward kindness and give the gift of hearing,
as they kickstart their campaign to give away €50,000 worth of hearing aids to anyone who's experienced hearing loss.
We want to recognise and reward the extraordinary people who've been supporting others during the COVID crisis.
Anyone can apply, so if you've been the recipient of kindness this year or know someone in need,
nominate a friend, a neighbour or family member for the gift of hearing with a free pair of hearing aids from Hidden Hearing.
Find out more and how to nominate someone at newstalk.com/hiddenhearing.
At Audi, we know some drivers go to extremes to show they love their car. While now there's an easier way. Introducing the all-new Audi Service Subscription. Enjoy 2 Audi services plus a full vehicle health check, 12 months roadside assistance, wiper blade replacement, and much more. Show your Audi some love from just $13.99 per month over 24 months. Book your Audi Service subscription now at audiservice.ie. Terms and conditions apply. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
QuoteDevil.ie can save you money on your car insurance, van insurance, or home insurance. QuoteDevil Home Insurance is so easy. Get a quote in just 60 seconds and purchase cover in 3 minutes.
The Quote Devil's always got one hell of a quote.
QuoteDevil Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
We never realised our little girl Eva was a gift we would have to give back. But the truth is, our beautiful Eva is with us every single day. She's in every song we sing, every family hug, and every kiss goodnight.
Nothing can prepare you for losing a child. But Laura Lynn, Ireland's only children's hospice, was there for us in our darkest moments. I hope you will join us by supporting Laura Lynn this Christmas. Please donate today at lauralynn.ie.
Thank you and happy Christmas.
Turkey or no turkey? What PJs will we get? Real tree or not? And what to get John in Secret Santa? At Dunnes Stores, we're making it easier to get all the things that make Christmas. Most of our stores are open longer, from 7 a.m. to midnight. You can even book your store visit ahead of time. For everything you need this Christmas. Dunnes Stores. Make Christmas for everyone. Search opening hours or visit dunnesstores.com for more information.
Nice arms. Here, let me show you how you lift it. Well, since you're new.
I'm grand, thanks.
Sure, she's only showing him the ropes.
Okay, bend the knees. Yeah, right down.
Can you stop touching me?
He can look after himself.
Relax, will you? I'm only showing you how it's done.
Most men would be delighted with the attention.
Will you stop?
Let's stop excusing sexual harassment and sexual violence. Enough is enough. Learn more at gov.ie/no excuses, or in an emergency, call 999.
Get Sky Sports and Sports Extra, half price for 6 months.
What an opportunity here!
Watch old rivals take on new competition in the Autumn Nations Cup live on Premier Sports.
That's wonderful work.
Catch all the drama with exclusive international rugby.
Done it again!
Get Sky Sports, BT Sports and Premier Sports all half price for 6 months.
Oh, that's a strong finish.
Search Sky Sports sale today. New sports customers only. Standard pricing applies after 6 months or of cancelling one element of the bundle. Minimum term and further terms apply.
Antonio Dominguez is an ordinary man with an extraordinary talent. The fastest piano key hitter in the universe.
824 key hits in under 60 seconds.
Bravo, Antonio. Your obsession with speed has led to something extraordinary, and so has ours. Ireland's fastest broadband network has just got even faster. 1 gig broadband from Virgin Media, now available to 97.5% of our network. See virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media. Bring on amazing.
Subject to location and availability. T's and C's apply. Ireland's fastest broadband network based on analysis by Ookla of speed test intelligence data Q1 to Q2 2020. See virginmedia.ie/proof.
Home is everything this Christmas. So make it festive with great savings from Woodies. Choose your perfect Christmas tree with all trees up to half price. Or pick up your Christmas decorations and lights, all now half price. We've got everything you need for Christmas and more in our one-stop shop. But hurry, offer only while stocks last. Woodies, we're all homemakers.
Follow the leader, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. The world's best-selling plug-in hybrid is now available with 0% finance and a free home charge point worth €800. Leading the charge in plug-in hybrid technology, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Book a test drive at your local dealer today. Mitsubishi, drive your ambition. Terms and conditions apply. See mitsubishimotors.ie. Lending criteria applies. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance.
What if you could say hola to your dream job, ni hao to jaw-dropping adventures, bonjour to brand new friends, or marhaban to embracing diversity? Learning languages unlocks a world of opportunity wherever you are. And that's what transition year students are exploring during #ThinkLanguages this December. Curious about what languages can do for you? Visit languagesconnect.ie to find out more. Languages Connect is supported by the Government of Ireland.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
You're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 o'clock. Speaking about football in the company of Dan McDonnell, the Irish Independent Football correspondent, Johnny Ward, the broadcaster and journalist, and the former Republic of Ireland defender Gary Breen. Our football coverage brought to you with thanks to Paddy Power. For more information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. You can text us on 53106. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. You can watch us on the social channels for Periscope, on Twitter at Off the Ball, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on the new OTB Sports app. We have a goal. Manchester City against Fulham. Predictable. Darren Stanage.
It's a City 2, Fulham 0, a City doubling their lead on 25 minutes. It came from the penalty spot. Raheem Sterling felled in the area by the Fulham captain, Anderson, and the referee pointed to the spot. Up steps Kevin De Bruyne, sent the keeper the wrong way. Comfortable penalty. City deservedly 2 ahead here. City 2, Fulham 0.
Now, just going through the other scores in the Premier League and the Championship. Earlier on, Burnley 1, Everton 1 was a full-time Dominic Calvert-Lewin equalising when Robbie Brady had put Burnley in front. It's a half-5 start. West Ham against Manchester United. Going to talk about Man United very shortly. 53106 United fans. What is the verdict generally on Solskjær at the moment? Are you happy with him, or are you too inconsistent? What is the general sense about how your club is doing at the moment? 8 o'clock start, Chelsea against Leeds. Earlier on in the Championship, Reading went second with a 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest. It's Brentford 0, Blackburn Rovers 1 at the moment. Other scores coming in: Bristol City 0, Birmingham City 0. It's Coventry City 2, Rotherham United 0. Huddersfield Town 1, QPR 0. It's goalless between Millwall and Derby County. Also scoreless between Norwich City and Sheffield Wednesday. It's Preston North End 1, Wycombe Wanderers 0. Stoke City 1, Middlesbrough 0. Swansea City 1, Luton Town 0. and Watford 0. Cardiff City 0. Also got a text in here on 53106. Having been on trial, this is about Brexit. Having been on trial with Wolves in the late 70s, I think it's great Irish players should stay at home until they're 18. The pluses are young players can finish their education. Have no fear, if you're good enough, you will make it, says Niall and Luke. And Johnny Ward, what do you think of that?
Yeah, Niall, I couldn't agree more. You know, I've spoken to... Interested to hear you on this, Gary, as well, after, just because... you know, I'm not trying to say that the coaching level in this country, as much as I think the underage leagues, which I'm a massive fan of, just necessitated the introduction of coaches from 13, 15, 17, 19 up at what should be an elite level. And, you know, this is across the National League of Ireland. And that's been a great opportunity for sort of recently retired players to get into coaching. And I think that'll actually stand to us. I think good coaches will come from that maybe would have not had the opportunity otherwise. But we have to look on this as an opportunity, JD. This is something we should be positive about. For the players as an actual body, I think it's very important to point out, you mentioned a figure there, and I was asking somebody this today, how many players actually go over every year, and your figure was it about 50 a year or something like that? 30 to 50
a year.
30 to 50. So it's not a huge number of players, but the percentage who actually will make it, and in order to like really justify the whole English thing, you kind of want to play at championship level anyway, or up, because otherwise, like League 2, League 1 and League 2, like you should be able to have a good career elsewhere. Like, do you really need to be playing in England at that level? So my point would be that if you're over here, the commitment to education, you know, at the clubs over there is by all accounts is quite token. They tick boxes and they just get it out the way. If you're over here and you can get your education and you can stay at home, I think that's a massive advantage for a lot of young individuals who will get homesick, and the majority are not going to make it. The vast majority are not going to make it. So there's that as well. But the thing is, we have an opportunity here now. Between the government have to be listening to this. The government have to help the clubs, not only the League of Ireland clubs, but also the nursery clubs who have accesses with the League of Ireland now, and they have kind of link-ups. If our kids are going to stay at home, and maybe the elite ones might go, as Dan says, to Germany or that, we have an opportunity here. We've seen Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers play very young players, including a 14-year-old in a first division game at senior level this year, and they can get access to first-team football that they wouldn't necessarily get in England. We have to look on this as an opportunity, and we have to bring forward the coaches. But as Dan says, the clubs aren't ready for this yet, so they need help from the government to say, we're going to, you know, back you in terms of the academies, because in the overall scheme of things, longer term, Ireland will be better for this. We'll have kids staying in this country, and the League of Ireland quality will get much stronger. And if and when they go to Britain at 18, they should be in good nick. But it will take help from the government, I think.
Gary, do you remember many homesick kids when you were young? In the dressing rooms? Because the failure of not making it, surely it's very psychologically tough.
Oh, emotionally, I don't think young players at that age are able to cope with it, bearing in mind they build being a professional footballer. And you're just not mature enough to deal with it. I used to hate it, John. I really did. And I remember lads coming over and, they're just too young to come over. And I always felt that players might come over. It didn't quite happen for them initially when they come over at 15, 16, go back to League of Ireland and play their games, but then come back to England a far better player, a far more rounded person, mature and able to cope with it then. Because if I think about, if I had to leave home at 15, I would never have been able to do that. No way. And I agree with Johnny there, education. I turned down an apprenticeship at Charlton to finish my education over here, do my A-levels, and I was able to continue playing league football, which was the old 4th division then for Maidstone, and there's your school in that way. So I do believe that it's a massive opportunity. I totally agree with Johnny there in terms of the chance. It's a great opportunity for the lads to develop our coaching abilities back in Ireland. But of course, that's going to be finance driven, isn't it, in terms of being able to put that infrastructure in place. But in terms of the coaching that you get, we talked about the lads might now well go off to the likes of Holland, Germany, whatever. I think they would get a fabulous education there as well. I've no doubt about that. I think too much has been made at the ex-players taking over teams, young teams, as an opportunity to learn their coaching skills. But the reality is, in places like Holland, it's the best coaches that they have right then who look after the 12, 13-year-olds, because they believe, their mindset is that these are their most formative years, that you have to get their right ideals into them then. They probably give the ex-player who's just retired, they probably give them the 16s, 17s and 18s because they felt that the core message that they've had to get in has been done already.
We've been too used as well, JD, to and I wouldn't even call it mediocrity. It's been below mediocrity. We live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world in terms of what money people earn. We have very high salaries across the state in this country, yada, yada. We have a very high standard of living, and our standard of football, which is the most participation sport, and the money involved is an absolute joke. It's an absolute joke, the money that's involved in the League of Ireland. You've league champions getting 110 grand, unless you're getting into Europe, or you have massive sponsorship deals, or you're getting good transfer fees, which you can't rely on for young players. There's no money in this country, and that needs to change. We need to have a football industry, because we've been miles behind for years and years and years. We've never had a proper professional league in this country from the ground up, and we really should be looking to make that happen, because there's more than enough money in this country. It's encouraging to see the likes of Dermot Desmond getting involved with Shamrock Rovers, because we need money in this country, and we need proper support from the FAI, albeit it's had a tough time, obviously. We need money in this country, because when you see the money that even the likes of Iceland compared to in Ireland, which is a very wealthy country, it is a bit of a joke.
Just 25-14, just let you know in the rugby, just for people who want to know what the rugby score is. Keith Earls 2 tries, Cian Healy 1, 25-14 to Ireland against Scotland in this Nations Cup game. Just thinking on that, football gets a pittance compared to horse racing and greyhound racing.
It does, and there's now listen, I know that people will say as a counterpoint, the extent to which horse racing and greyhound racing may employ people, and there's obviously a agricultural link in terms of where they get funding from as well, in terms of not necessarily coming from sporting funding channels. But I mean, it is a very valid point. It's a point that's been made. I mean, we have a situation this week, and I don't want to engage in whataboutery, because there's nothing worse than that. But you have a situation this week where elite underage football in this country has been shut down, with 2-3 weeks to go in the season, to the point where, and I appreciate we're in exceptional times, but we have a situation where the equivalent GAA games are going ahead. And by the way, I'm not trying to get into some debate to get them stopped as well. If anything, I think it's the other way. I think, we should be encouraging these things to continue. But you have a situation, as was pointed out to me, that you could have under 17, under 19 international players in Ireland at the moment who may not play a competitive game now until next March, which is 4 or 5 months in their development gone. And that's symptomatic of a mindset and an attitude, I believe, that really that the sort of the development of footballers is always something that we've outsourced. To actually really, if you're going to come out and celebrate the good times as politicians do when things go well, and grandstand and do what needs to be done when there's currency in it. I think there is a sort of you can't have everything handed to you either, and I appreciate everyone wants a piece of the pie as well. And there was a bailout from the state to the FAI in recent times as a consequence of basically mismanagement, and that has possibly eroded a lot of goodwill that other sports would have towards football getting a dig out. And I appreciate that. I think we have to be cognizant of that. But there is certainly, there is a welfare education aspect to how we treat and how we export young footballers. And as a result, I think there is like a merit in doing something there in that department. But it requires a substantial change of mindset. Like I've seen a circular going around today from Dublin and District Schoolboys League people who are very upset over the situation where grassroots football isn't taking place at the moment. And that's the problem. Like there's a lot of disharmony and tensions in the game here. And to capitalise on the opportunity that's here, you need everyone rowing in the same direction. And we just don't have that at the moment. And that's the fear. I agree with all the points the lads are making about the opportunity, and I crave this to happen, desperately do. But just a lot of unhappiness amongst people on the ground. And Gary also makes the point that like development of 12, 13, 14 is so important, and it is. And like people are doing a great job in that area here too. The quality of that sort of generation of Malumbi, Aaron Connolly, Paris, and it's a great credit to Belvedere and Merview and the various, Villa in Waterford from Malumbi and the various places in the work they've done. But we're sort of relying on a bit of luck and a bit of chance, really, as opposed to a coherent plan. And now has to be the time to come up with some kind of coherent plan.
Politicians, are you listening? We hope you are. And it's definitely very good points that the lads have made. But there's a lot of strange decisions at the moment. Like you've got gastropubs open, and that's great, and restaurants open, and that's all great, and they've been all obviously safely run. But you've got an empty Aviva at the moment for the Ireland-Scotland game, where you could maybe have 5,000 fans socially distanced in the open air in a 50,000 stadium. But look, I don't think we're going to solve it all today or before Christmas.
Just briefly, Judy, sorry, my last point in this. Like my father went off to England when he was young, and whatever decade that was, 50s or 60s, the massive parts of the country were decimated because there was no work and people had to go to England to get work. We've moved on to be an incredibly prosperous country right now. We shouldn't really have to be exporting our footballers like we have for generations and generations to England. The younger footballers, unless they're really, really elite, they should be able to, to get educated in this country, to get properly coached from a young age in this country, and then potentially move on. But like enough is enough at this stage. We should have a bit more faith in what we have in this country and the future that we might have, because we've been lagging behind for far too long, and that's reflected in an international team that's obviously struggling as well.
Okay, Manchester United lost to PSG during the week. They're playing West Ham at 5:30. I just want to bring in Andy Mitten here, who was on OTB AM this week. He's the editor of the United We Stand magazine, and he said that regardless of the result against PSG, Ole Gunnar Solskjær remains safe in his job at Old Trafford.
But if they go out of the Champions League next week, then there's also the opportunity for the vultures to start circling again. So what's the truth in your instinct about where the hierarchy views the Solskjær era at the moment?
Today is absolutely secure in his job. But as you say, lose against West Ham, managed by David Moyes, in a stadium where United have been really poor in recent seasons, go out of the Champions League, and it puts a totally different perspective on things, and the pressure will build. The vultures will start picking off. A lot of fans will as well, and they're entitled to. Fans are absolutely entitled to their opinion. But as of today, following that defeat, following 4 straight wins, ahead after that defeat in Istanbul, he's secure. I spoke to him for 9 or 10 minutes the other day, and he said, we're getting better. And I think United are getting better, but they're not at PSG's level, and PSG won the game. The frustrating thing is United were playing well. Anthony Martial needed to take those chances at that level. The Parisian against Paris, and then Edison Cavani, who's been playing well, superb at Southampton. He tried that chip and it hit the crossbar. It's the fine margins.
53106, some text in on United. Having been on trial, I know it's the Wolves one. United play some scintillating football on Wednesday night. If Martial scored, and he should have, there wouldn't be a word about Fred, who wasn't taken off at half-time. 99% of people would have hooked Fred, and that's why they're not in football management. I wouldn't have trusted Matic or Pogba to do the Fred disruption role versus Paris Saint-Germain. That is from Richard in Leash. Ole seems to be afraid of another texture to make the big decisions in games. He always makes the easy sub, taking off a younger non-senior player like Greenwood, even if he's playing better than Rashford or the constantly abysmal Martial this season. Seems to me Ole is much too worried about falling out with players, which means players aren't scared of him or losing their places. That is from Kevin in Leitrim. And might be a Liverpool fan here. Ole is doing a fantastic job of giving him a 10-year contract or keep him at Old Trafford forever. That is from Dave in Gorey in County Wexford. Gary, I canvassed United fans on Twitter yesterday. A lot of them defending Ole Gunnar Solskjær. They were sympathetic. Maybe being a club legend gives you a degree of immunity. Some see Ed Woodward and the Glazers as a bigger problem at United. But I don't see a solution yet to this inconsistency. You lose at home to Palace, Arsenal, Spurs. You lose 6-1 to Spurs. I know they had a player sent off. You lose to Istanbul in the Champions League. Liverpool were castigated for years for not sorting out their ability to win titles after 1990. Now it's 7 years. Now Liverpool 1997 is Man United now. What is your take on Solskjær going forward? Can he iron out this inconsistency in the club?
Well, listen, in terms of the support he gets from all the fans, that's because of his career as a player. If that was any other manager doing the same things that he's done in terms of the inconsistency, then they wouldn't be there. Now, he's earned that support because he had a fabulous career. But you have to look at certain scenarios. The fact that they've lost 4 home games. Now, this is Manchester United. Old Trafford's not feared as it was, and that's obviously not just indicative of the manager, it's indicative of the team. But I'm looking at certain scenarios where, you know, they come back from 2-0 down against Southampton, and then Solskjær bangs that drum again. It's like the Manchester United of old. The fact that they just keep going. I watched that game in detail, and I was so unimpressed with that second half performance in that. It was no tactical masterclass. No chance was it that. He goes to a 4-4-2, then he goes to a 4-3-1. To the end of that game, the players are just running everywhere and anywhere. Now, massive credit to those players because they literally dragged themselves out of a hole to win that game. Cavani was brilliant. He really was. But in terms of that being a tactics by design, it wasn't. It was purely off the cuff. And then this is the big concern. I think that the stick with which people are beating him this week in terms of not taking Fred off is because you're probably thinking of Fred as your most combative midfielder. He's a disruptive player in there trying to stop it. But I think players can go onto a yellow card very early on, and they can manage the rest of the game comfortably. They can. But I think you have to put it in context. The fact that the referee and certainly the PSG players felt that he was lucky not to be sent off for the headbutt. So the referee will have that in his mind. The PSG players are going down with any little bit of contact. So you have to react to what is happening and what is unfolding in front of you. And I always felt that it was inevitable that he was going to be sent off. So I think as a manager, when you make that decision, you live and die by those decisions. And the very fact that they went on then to lose a game obviously puts a lot of pressure back on Solskjær.
Lads, maybe I'm just have kryptonite about Solskjær's press conferences because they drive me up the wall after every game.
Yeah.
Danny, John, do you have United supporting friends that are? I don't get a sense of outrage about the way United are not the Roy Keane leading club in the world anymore.
Yeah, but like this, you know, this has been some time that, you know, in fairness, in terms of the quality they've had on the pitch and all that, you know, Alex Ferguson was always going to be a very hard one to replace, and they haven't managed that, and I think they've. Maybe a bit like Stephen Bradley at Shamrock Rovers. They're giving the manager a bit of time now, but, you know, Solskjær isn't there. Like, the decision to give Solskjær the job isn't based on anything remotely logical. I mean, Manchester United, with the currency it has worldwide, should have a top-class manager. I never could really get my head around why they didn't, why they gave Solskjær the job, because his link to Manchester United, to my mind, was just absolutely irrelevant. So it is what it is at this stage. As Gary says, like, a lot of the time they don't look like they're really that well coached in terms of tactics and so forth. They're doing okay in the league table. If they beat West Ham today, they're actually only 2 points behind Liverpool. But like, I don't know, it just seems like Groundhog Day with Solskjær. They'll beat West Ham today, then they'll kind of get a draw against someone not as good next week, and then we'll be back to talking in 2 weeks' time. We'll be saying the same thing. Next week we'll be saying they've turned the corner. The week after we'll be saying, is Solskjær safe? And I don't honestly know the answer at this stage. Other than that, they kind of made their bed with Solskjær. He wasn't a world-class manager, so they gave him the job to a guy who's not a world-class manager, and it turns out his management of the team probably isn't world-class.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's you mentioned about like sort of United supporting friends and stuff like that. I mean, I think maybe like there have been times, and it's probably been alluded to there probably by Gary to some degree, that like there was the sense that people wanted it to work. So if there was that positive run, it would be almost egged up, and there was a sense of, well, you know, people said this wasn't working, and he's done this and that. But it is Groundhog Day. Like, there's not much more you can say. Like, he's not going to be the longer term solution, but he's doing okay-ish. So he's always one or two bad results away from a crisis, one or two good results away from the perception he's turning a corner. But I think we probably all know how it's going to end, really. Like, it's not going to end well. So it depends what their mindset is. Like, I mean, they may secure an okay finish this season, you know, and be competitive. But there comes a point where I think, you know, we'll wake up one day to a mutual consent press release, and that will be that. And I really don't see how it ends in any other way. And it's just a matter of when it does. And maybe it's next summer now, which is, to be fair to him, it's supposed to be longer than I might have thought, and other people would have thought he would have got. But I think that's where it goes, really, yeah. Because there's no clear sign that they're on the up. You can't. There's a lot of false dawns and stuff, but there's no coherent sign of it, really, that they're really a team with a firm direction about where they're going. There's no evidence of it, really.
Okay, got to take a break. Back after the news with Dan McDonnell, Johnny Ward and Gary Breen. Speaking about the 100th FAI Cup Final, your memories of FAI Cup Finals you've attended or watched down through the years. We've got some great comments in already on that, and obviously the World Cup draw to come, Celtic, Neil Lennon, and looking ahead to the North London derby with Gary on Spurs and Arsenal tomorrow. Just to give you some scores, Burnley 1, Everton 1 full-time in the Premier League, half-time Manchester City 2, Fulham 0, and in the Championship full-time earlier on, Reading going second with a 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest, and half-times Brentford 1, Blackburn Rovers 1. It's Bristol City 0, Birmingham City 0 at the break. It's Coventry City 2, Rotherham United 0, Huddersfield Town 2, QPR 0 at half-time. Half-time Millwall 0, Derby County 0, half-time Norwich 0, Sheffield Wednesday 0, Stoke 1, Middlesbrough 0. It's Swansea City 1, Luton Town 0, Watford 0, Cardiff City 1, and a latest score just in the closing stages of the first half, Preston North End 1, Wycombe Wanderers 0. This is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. You can text us on 53106. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. Please don't go away.
This weekend on News Talk, we're rewarding kindness with the gift of hearing when you nominate someone for a free pair of hearing aids from Hidden Hearing this Christmas. Find out more at newstalk.com/hidden hearing.
Have you taken the Guaranteed Irish Challenge yet this year? It calls on everyone to buy one gift from guaranteedirishgifts.ie.
It's an altogether better way to save jobs, communities and local businesses.
So look out for the Guaranteed Irish symbol when you visit guaranteedirishgifts.ie.
There are plenty of reasons to get an official Volkswagen service, from the expertise of a Volkswagen master technician to the confidence in using only Volkswagen genuine parts. However, to the majority of drivers, only one reason really matters: what you get when you bring it all together, an official service history. In fact, 78% of Irish drivers would pay more for your Volkswagen if it has a full Volkswagen service history. Help protect your resale value and keep your Volkswagen a Volkswagen. Book your classic service from only €179 at volkswagenservice.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
InsureMyCars.ie. Make it a really good afternoon and check out the great car insurance discounts at InsureMyCars.ie. Ireland's trusted car insurance specialists. For super family savings, check out InsureMyCars.ie. City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyCars.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
We want to do more. To do more for the planet, more for the future, more supporting, rallying, having our voices heard more. But to do more, to be carbon neutral, sometimes we need to do less. Less printing, flying and fossil fuel driving, less denial and delays and doing nothing.
AIB is the first Irish bank to pledge to operate as carbon neutral by 2030. We pledge to do more. Allied Irish Banks plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
This year, we've all missed out on special moments. So this Christmas, give the gift of memories with the I Knew a collection gift card. Perfect catch-ups over afternoon tea, treasured Sunday lunches, soothing spa days, or an overnight getaway at our 9 hotels across Ireland. From our 5-star Muckross Park Hotel to the Radisson Blue in Cork, Athlone, Limerick and Sligo. Plus, for every voucher over €100, we'll donate €5 to Down Syndrome Ireland on your behalf. Shop now at iknewa.ie. Merry Christmas from the I Knew a collection.
collection.
White's Irish Art Auction is online now at whites.ie. Enjoy wonderful works by Walter Osborne, William Orpin, Jack Yates, Paul Henry, Gerard Dillon, Louis Lebrocki, Tony O'Malley, and many more. Bidding ends Monday 7th of December at whites.ie. Whites, where Irish art is truly valued.
The purchase of sex is illegal in Ireland. That means that if you're caught, you'll be arrested, and you'll have to explain it to your wife and children. Maybe they'll believe you think prostitution is just a job like any other, but I wouldn't count on it. The vast majority of men don't buy sex and don't buy the excuses of those who do. Prostitution, we don't buy it. Go to wedon'tbuyit.eu to learn more.
Welcome to Go Loud Jazz, the new home for jazz music in all its forms. Big band, bebop, smooth, and everything in between. Featuring a mix of new tunes and famous tracks by legendary artists, from Monk and Davis, Parker and Coltrane, to Ella and Billy. Go Loud Jazz. Fascinating rhythms. Download the Go Loud app now for free. Go Loud. Podcasts, radio, and music to your ears.
In the Irish Field this weekend, get your free copy of the Equine Industry Directory for 2021. This essential reference book has updated contact details for every sector of the horse world. Usually €20, it's free with the Irish Field only this weekend. Also in this week's paper, champion jockey Colin Keane talks about his fantastic season and future plans, and we celebrate the return of equestrian sport from COVID closure. All this, much more, and a free Equine Industry Directory. The Irish Field, we are all about the horse.
Our Skoda certified technicians eat nuts and bolts for breakfast. Young man, it's merely a metaphor. You don't literally have to eat the nuts and the bolts. If you're looking for a service that goes above and beyond, within reason, book your major service today, now with a set of complimentary windscreen wipers. To book, visit skodaservice.ie. No technicians were harmed in the making of this commercial.
The radio. It can take you back to Christmas shopping on the 8th of December.
Motorists are requested to avoid travelling to Dublin due to heavy...
Dad had gone up to Dublin. Mum was furious.
Where did you get to?
Until she saw the beautifully presented box of delicious Butler's chocolates. Thankfully, shopping online makes it a little easier these days. Visit your nearest Butler's Chocolate Cafe, selected retailers nationwide, or search butlerschocolates.com now.
Christmas Millionaire Raffle from the National Lottery is back. There are over €4.5 million in cash prizes. With one guaranteed millionaire, someone will wake up a millionaire on New Year's Day. Tickets are limited, so don't miss out. Pick up a ticket today in-store, in-app, or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you. Gift responsibly.
Screen Time.
This week on Screen Time, I talked to Caoimhín about his new movie Pixie, and also about trying to stay a nice guy.
You seem to not be in a bad mood ever.
I wish you'd tell my wife that, I'm never in a bad mood.
She told me not to call anymore.
Yeah.
With the cinemas reopening, there's a slew of new releases, and Mark Ryle is here to tell you which ones to see and which to avoid. Plus, the director of a scary new psychological thriller, Saint Maud.
Screen Time with John Fardy.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now, or tune in this evening from 6
on News Talk. Across Ireland. This is the IMRO Radio Awards National Station of the Year. This is News Talk.
It's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Burke. The European Centre for Disease Control is suggesting an extended school break in January would prevent a surge in COVID-19 cases. The ECDC says an extension of holidays after Christmas or a time of distance learning for students could decrease the risk of further transmission later. Social Democrats education spokesman Gary Gannon says keeping kids at home would have huge implications.
In terms of people trying to provide childcare facilities, in terms of the knock-on effect for students who've already lost a lot of learning, that we have to always resort to the evidence. And the evidence that we've been working off to this point is that transmission of the disease amongst particularly younger cohorts of students is very low globally. And that's the line that was also being presented by our own CMO. And I think we need to follow that line.
Ireland still faces a huge challenge even if a Brexit trade deal is agreed between the EU and the UK. That's according to a junior minister. Thomas Byrne, the Minister for European Affairs, says Ireland's trading relationship with Britain will be different from the new year.
No matter what happens in these talks, whether it's deal or no deal, Brexit results in substantial changes to the UK's relationship, and particularly Great Britain's relationship to Ireland in terms of trade. So there are going to be huge differences, huge inconveniences, huge problems after the 1st of January, even if we have a deal.
The Irish Congress of Trade Unions is warning that working from home could adversely affect women's careers in the future. A new EU directive will give carers and parents with children a right to request flexible and remote working by 2022. But ICTU's Dr. Laura Bambrick says excluding men from that directive could feminise the process and leave women isolated at home.
We know from research in the US that workers who work from home are at higher risk of getting overlooked for training opportunities and promotion. So what we want to do is to prevent that. And we are calling on the Citizens' Assembly to recommend to government that they give all workers the right to request to remote work in future post-pandemic.
And a man's been arrested after a cross-border pursuit this morning. The BMW stopped for Gardaí at the Fermanagh-Cavan border at around 10:15, but it was brought to a halt by PSNI officers southeast of Enniskillen later, who destroyed his tyres with a Stinger device. A 29-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of possession of a Class A controlled drug, failing to stop for police, dangerous driving and other motoring offences. It's 4:02.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. Download the new AA app to request a roadside rescue and track the patrol right to your car.
More showers across Munster and Connacht, with some drifting into East Leinster too. Dry otherwise, with clear spells and top temperatures today of 6 to 9 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Minimal contact in stadiums shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
You're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 o'clock. Just to give you the update from the rugby, 28 points to 16 in favour of Ireland at the Aviva Stadium against Scotland in this Autumn Nations Cup fixture. So maybe the clouds lifting as the year concludes for Andy Farrell and his team. 2 tries from Keith Earls and 1 from Cian Healy. We'll give you the full time, and also we'll update you on all developments around Dublin and Cavan, throwing at 5:30 in the All-Ireland football semi-final. Mossy Quinn will be joining us to look ahead. One change for the Dublin team, named earlier on today. Brian Howard coming in for Johnny Cooper. One change made by Desi Farrell. This is football until 5 with Gary Breen, the former Republic of Ireland defender, the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward, and the Irish independent football correspondent Dan McDonnell. Our football coverage brought to you thanks to Paddy Power. For more information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. You can text us 53106. Tweet us at Off the Ball, or watch us on the social channels for Off the Ball on Periscope, on Twitter at Off the Ball, on YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. The 100th FAI Cup Final takes place tomorrow. Dundalk against Shamrock Rovers, a 6:40 kick-off at the Aviva Stadium. Very special cup final anywhere around the world, lads, if it's the 100th one, Dan. And I was going through some tweets yesterday, having picked up that book that Sean Ryan wrote about 10 years ago about the FAI Cup.
Brilliant book. It's actually propping up my laptop at the moment, which is a bit unfortunate because I was going to take out and read a line from it, so it might affect my view if I do. But I was flicking through it because, as you mentioned, 100th FAI Cup Final, and I sort of look back through some landmark finals, for the paper today. So say, 1, 10, sort of 25, so on, and it spans a history of Irish football within it. Like even mentioned, the first final. It was St James's Gate against Shamrock Rovers, which took place in 1921. The reason it's the 100 is because we had 2 cup finals in 2002 because of a change from winter to a summer season. But after the first FAI Cup final, Shamrock Rovers at the time were a Leinster Senior League or Leinster League team, and they were sort of the underdogs. St James's Gate were the favourites, and at the full-time whistle, a couple of the Rovers fans got onto the pitch and, along with some players, attacked the victorious St James's Gate side. And it spilled over back into the dressing room, where one of the St James's Gate players was approached until his brother, who had just come off active service with the FAI, Jesus. With the
He's a lot more noble than that.
Well, Well, there's a history of Irish football with the IRA in the War of Independence and then the Civil War.
Please apologise to the IRA, then. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry for any offence caused. He produced a revolver, and that was the end of the dispute. So I suppose, like, you know, an inglorious start. And that was actually the start of Rovers' history in the competition. And it said at the time, even in the book, you know, Sean's book, which I think was written around 2010. So there's another, you know, other sort of 10 chapters in it from, you know, around the time that, you know, Rovers, like, you know, it was a poor start for them. But then I think, you know, it's sort of by 10 years later, they were already becoming the Cup Kings, and they're looking to win it for the 26th time. But yeah, like it is the showpiece game. It's the first one, unfortunately, with no fans. You know, it's often you know, it's the highlight of the year for a lot of people involved in the game here. You know, there was 36,000, I think, at the game last year when Rovers met Dundalk. It's going to be very different. I think it's going to be a very good game tomorrow, although someone sent me a message during the last hour to say your prediction of that could be changed if you turned on the rugby for a second and have a look at the pitch, which I just did. And yeah, the pitch is cutting up a bit, so that's not going to help maybe tomorrow. But hopefully they can do a bit of work on it overnight, and two footballing teams serve up a good game. And it is funny, Rovers and Dundalk, albeit Rovers clear by some distance, are the two most successful teams in the history of the competition. Dundalk are in their sixth successive final, which equals a Rovers record. So for the 100th, it's probably the most fitting pairing of all.
I was asking people on Twitter just to give me some memories. I'll just read some of them out here. Sean Walsh, 1980, Waterford beat St. Pat's 1-0. Brian Gardner with the winner. I was in first class in primary school. Two Waterford players brought the cup to our school. I asked them if they were Brian Gardner. They said no. I said, oh, pity, and sat back down. Not my finest hour. Andrew Dempsey, one of the first games I remember being at was the 03 Cup Final. Vividly remember standing up on the seat singing Stand Up for Longford Town. I would then get my foot caught in the seat as it closed, and about 10 minutes later we had front row seats, every cloud, eh? John Anslow, 1982, climbing over the fence to get on the pitch after Limerick beat Bows. The first and only match the mother went to, she declined the invitation to hop the barbed wire. John McDwyer, having been a supporter since 1954 and been reconciled to Sligo Rovers, never beating Shamrock Rovers in an FAI Cup Final. Nothing can ever top the day Kieran Kelly saved 4 penalties at the Aviva. Stand up for the bit of red, hashtag. And Rory O'Connor, your colleague Dan, would my uncle throw in a bow scarf around Linda Marston's shoulders after going straight from Dave Tilson's Lansdowne Road final for her 1992 Eurovision homecoming be the kind of thing you're looking for?
That's an obscure FAI Cup Final tale at best, but there you go. In fairness to Rory, he is from a Bows family. They haven't had a huge amount of the last 10-12 years or so. The cup hasn't been so kind to them. I think they were hoping to get to the Aviva this year, but not to be.
We got a text in here. Finn Harps against Bray Wanderers, the replay. Still have nightmares from Brendan and Donegal. I think that was 1999, Brendan. Yeah, I was reading through the book. Like 1984, after UCD won, the cup was stolen and then retrieved. We had that crazy game, Derry and Pats in 06, 4-3 for Derry. I think it was Stephen Kenny's last game.
It was the last game. That was the last game of football at the old Lansdowne Road, full stop, JD. So the old ground, I suppose Gary would remember well, and it could be really exposed to the elements on a bad day, and that was a spectacularly bad day. It was heavily wind assisted, but it was 4-3. Ended up being a cracking match, but sort of chaotic in its own way. But you're right. Kenny was actually already manager of Dunfermline, and came back to manage Derry in that game. But that was one of the best ones. The Sligo Rovers draw the one in 2013. A load of late goals as well. Probably the most dramatic finish at the Aviva, although it's been a tale of extra time and penalties really in the last decade, and it wouldn't shock you if we had more of the same again.
Yeah, Gary, Jack Byrne might be playing his last competitive game for Rovers tomorrow, and in a way he should be if he's the first Irish player in 35 years from the League of Ireland to be capped at senior international level. You'd hope that an English club would come in from now.
Yeah, listen, we've talked about this many times, and Dan gave a great insight, and Johnny, in terms of his technical abilities, that he's performing so well over there. But it has to be the right club. This is the problem that he's faced before, that he's made decisions to go to other clubs, and I've done it. You think it's the right club at that moment in time, it doesn't work out that way. So I think it's massively important that he gets the right club that suits his style.
Yeah, I think people around Jack are very conscious of the importance of this move for him, and I don't think he will just jump at something. I think it'll be more calculated. I think there's going to be an awareness of what type of manager he possibly needs to work with, because he does. Yeah. He does need that, and that's not a criticism of him. It's just reflective of someone's personality, and it's the kind of thing you'd have no problem saying it to him, and he might even agree at certain times. That he might just need that sort of relationship, and we'll see what happens. It may not necessarily be in England either. So we'll probably watch this space, but I would be very surprised if he was at Rovers next year. I think it's probably approaching the time now where he does, because in the Ireland games, he's had good moments, the one or two difficult moments, but he certainly doesn't look out of place, and I think certainly players I know that players around the squad would hold that view as well. They see Jack's ability, and he's more than capable of playing at that level, but he does. He just needs to test himself more regularly, I guess. I wish I wasn't saying that, but I think for where he's at 24 now, he's had 2 good years at home that saved his career, and whatever happens from here, I think we will say that. But I think now is the time to go somewhere and show us what you can really do.
Fergus, Bray Wanderers 3, St Francis 0. This was 1990. John Ryan hat-trick, not a shock, but the final captured the imagination as St Francis were non-league at the time. Yes, they were. Kevin McLaughlin on 2006, despite the horrendous Baltic conditions, was still a super end-to-end game, with the late, great Mark Farron scoring the goal of the day after a sublime defence-splitting pass from Paddy McCourt. Johnny, you must be, 8 or 9 when Galway United won in 91? Johnny Glynn?
Yeah, I was 8 going on 9, yeah, and I still remember it. Remember the old TV we had? It was one of those things a bit like Onslow and Keeping Up Appearances. You had to actually bash the top of it to get the grey off the screen. Simpler times, and they were the days. How many games were on TV in those days from Ireland? I mean, Gary, you remember as well, these, every game, you can pretty much watch every game now. In those days, it was special to watch football because it just wasn't that common. But that was 91. I think Dan referenced the game there, the last one, obviously in the old Lansdowne. I think the Aviva Stadium, that change has brought the FAI Cup onto a completely different level. I think the prize of playing in this stadium, and with the expectancy now that you're going to get crowds regularly of 35,000, I think for the fans, it's just such an enormous buzz to be at that ground, practically full. It's kind of it's almost like the one day of the year where the League of Ireland feels mainstream, when you see such a big crowd in the Aviva Stadium. And thankfully, Dundalk have been in the final for, consistently. We've had good finals because we've had good teams there, and Dundalk have again gotten there. And I think this is a really intriguing final. There's a real difference in terms of the prep for it, because Dundalk have come through a really hectic schedule, and Shamrock Rovers have come in fresh, but I would argue that they've kind of come in maybe a little bit cold, because they had the League One so far out. They haven't been playing in Europe. Granted, they beat Finn Harps in the semi-final, but that was
quarterfinal.
In the quarterfinal, rather, and then beat Sligo. But neither game was the Sligo game was kind of over at half time. The Finn Harps game was a complete mess of a game and a terrible pitch. So I don't know. I they've had a few injury worries. That thing about Jack, I think is kind of hovering in the background. I think the expectancy is that he will go, but his future is kind of up in the air. It'll probably be his swan song, I'd imagine, for Shamrock Rovers. Dundalk come in having effectively not put out their best team against Molde during the week, and kind of had their eye in this game. But I think what's kind of key for Dundalk is that Patrick McElhenney is really looking like he's just coming to form at exactly the right time, certainly for this game. I think he's been brilliant in recent performances for Dundalk. And I would kind of somewhat build this as the McElhenney versus Jack Byrne final, because I think McElhenney's still under contract at Dundalk, but I think he's exactly the type of player that Shamrock Rovers would look as a replacement for Jack Byrne if he were on a free, because he has that technical ability. But we've referenced Robbie Brady. McElhenney's had a really injury-plagued career, and I think this is his time to shine, because he has himself. I think both he and Jack Byrne have an ability that marks him out at this level, and I would put McElhenney in that bracket. And I think this is his final. Dan will probably have a better idea what the formations might be and all that. But the McElhenney versus Jack Byrne, not to mention Duffy and Graham Burke and all these splendid players, I think McElhenney, this is his time to show what he can do, because he's going to be central to the result.
Was it Portugal? I was just checking out the stats. You first played in Dublin, the Lansdowne Road, Gary, Portugal, in a friendly.
Yeah, cool. That's a long time ago. And it was interesting there, Dan, saying about the rugby lads cutting the pitch up today. So often we turn up, and if it was in and around the Five Nations as it was then, Six Nations now, and if the rugby team had been on it, it'd be a right mess, the pitch. It really would, though. But you're right, the Aviva is a stunning stadium now, and I think the fear factor's gone a little bit from the opposition, certainly, in terms of the quality of the Ireland team. Of course, that counts a lot to it. But I remember lining up there, walking out in the tunnel, and you'd be looking at these world-class players up it, and they did not fancy Lansdowne one bit.
Was that the Dutch? Was that the Dutch, Gary? I don't know if you played that game.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I was injured. I failed a fitness test for that. One of the most iconic games in history. Stan took my place. He didn't look back, did he? Ended up captaining the team at the World Cup. But no, any of the teams, John, to be honest, Croatia coming off of the World Cup, finishing third when we then played them in, what would it have been, 2000. Yeah. And we beat them comfortably 2-0. All those top players, as soon as they went out, heard the roar of the crowd, you could see them looking at it and think, I don't know if they fancied it. It was great time.
It's definitely not helped us in some respects because, you know, we were so hard to beat at home, Gary. And now when they come, I guess, you look at what the Danes have done to us, you know, some of the performances at home, we've been sort of well beaten. It's just any other stadium now, really.
Yeah, but Johnny, to be fair, of course the stadium, massive part, but that time when we were so difficult to beat was really because we had so many good players and then 3 or 4 exceptional players. That's the difference.
Speaking of the Irish team, the World Cup draw is on Monday. I'm just going to clear the permutations here, guys, just to sort of like the options of who we could draw and who we might want to avoid as well in this World Cup draw in Zurich at 5 o'clock on Monday. So hard for Stephen Kenny in that only 13 teams qualify for the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. We'd love if it wasn't in Qatar, but it will be. Pot 1, Belgium, France, England, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Croatia, Denmark, Germany and the Netherlands. Pot 2, Switzerland, Wales, Poland, Sweden, Austria, Ukraine, Serbia, Turkey, Slovakia and Romania. Pot 3 is one we're in. Pot 4, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Albania, Bulgaria, Israel, Belarus, Georgia and Luxembourg. Pot 5, Armenia, Cyprus, Faroe Islands, Azerbaijan, Estonia, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Lithuania, Latvia and Andorra. And Pot 6, Malta, Moldova, Liechtenstein, Gibraltar and San Marino. So I think we'll be hoping for maybe Croatia and Wales, or Denmark and Wales.
We want Wales again.
Oh, no, Wales are in pot 2. We don't want Wales. I think I think out of pot 2 we'd fancy Slovakia or Romania definitely actually. Pot 1, Denmark or Croatia, I think, but it's a tough one. Like it is. I mean, now like there's not a massive difference between pot 2 and pot 3, but there's enough that you can get really unlucky. Like you can get a Switzerland in pot 2, which I think would be a bit of a tough one. Poland would be a real nightmare out of pot 2. And like you know, as you mentioned with the permutations, John, like the World Cup is just so hard to qualify for that you are playing. You know, it's only about winning the group, and then your second gets you a playoff. And even now the playoff system is slightly convoluted because you throw in a couple of Nations League teams. So it's a bit like the format just gone there, that you need to win 2 games against 2 different teams in the playoff. So it's hard going. I mean, I was looking at this for Monday. I mean, I suppose in recent memory, the 2018 draw was actually like Wales were the top seeds that Ireland got, which was probably kind enough. Ireland were actually 4th seeds in that, and it just so happened that 3rd seeded Serbia won the group. But it was quite an open group, and it's actually not since Germany in 2016 have we had that real heavyweight, you know, with Switzerland, Denmark for the Euros, which probably, look, it was tough, but it wasn't one of those draws where you have a team drawn out and you think, well, they're going to win the group. We're now playing for second, and there's a law of averages aspect to it that we maybe are due one like that, because that's just it's the percentage is weighted very heavily towards a very strong pot 1 team coming out. But in a way, like you nearly want to avoid a Bosnia or someone from pot 4. You want a reasonable quality pot 2 team, and then see what happens. You know, I mean, it's you can talk yourself to death in permutations and dream draws and nightmare draws. I think Stephen Kenny would take something in the middle, But more than anything, I think what is no longer controlled by the associations and is also computer generated is the fixtures, it's the order of fixtures. And I think what Stephen Kenny and his staff really need is a kind march. I think after the sort of autumn they've had and how things finished pretty badly, I think they just could do with the old give us a Gibraltar or something like that, just to get things going and get through that March window with a bit of positivity and a bit of momentum, and see what happens later in the year when hopefully there's crowds back and things are back to something a bit more like normality.
I think that's definitely key, because like as no matter how you sugarcoat it, like our goal scoring and the things that have gone against us, and then that nonsense over the England game, all of these things have just created something of, if not a winter of discontent, certainly a winter of kind of concern. Like, and you know that the Irish players and the management, they're not going into the Christmas like on an absolute high as to what Ireland have done. So, would you really fancy Ireland taking on one of the better teams, one of the pot 1, pot 2s early on in the campaign? It's just like a win could do wonders. Even a 2-0 win or a 3-0 win against a really poor opposition could at least get us going. And you just want us, because I think, in fairness to Stephen Kenny and the lads, up until sort of the England game, you could make a lot of allowances, and there's still been a lot of positives in this, but we just need a bit of a break at this stage, and that would be the break that we'd be looking for, getting an easy game first.
We got the momentum, like in 2000, Gary, Portugal and Holland were European Championship semi-finalists, but we got a bit of momentum early on, and when you get the momentum, are you less feeling of inferiority about the elite of the seeds that you're playing against?
Well, when that draw came out, you are looking at those teams and thinking, but the difference, John, is that was a team, we were a team that was smarting really from not winning our group in the Euros, the campaign before. We can't defend a corner, last kick of the game, we win the group, first Ireland team to do it. So it had that bit of steely determination, coupled with the fact that we were maturing as a team. We were coming into our own now. We've been together a long time. So it's a totally different scenario. I think we never once felt that we were vulnerable in that group. We felt we could. I mean, we went through the whole group undefeated. But I think I agree with the lads there. I think it's so important that we get a good first game to start the campaign, just to break the cycle a little bit in terms of negativity that's been around Stephen Kenny, because he's had such a difficult early part of his tenure, the type of problems that you could never have seen. But I just think as a group, I do think there's been a good body of coaching. I genuinely do believe that. I can understand what they're trying to do. But I think it's just important that we get everyone back fit so that they can give a better account of themselves. And suddenly then all the criticisms would kind of move away a little bit. And I think they need that to move forward.
We've got a funny text in here on 53106 about FAI Cup Finals. 1985 final, Galway versus Rovers, 1-0 to Rovers. Band refused to leave until they'd finished the tunes. Delay the start of the second half for about 5 minutes. We got to take a break. We'll talk about the North London derby and other matters in football, like Celtic as well, after this.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. GamblingCare.ie.
Look for local this Christmas. It's up to us. To feature your business on The Pat Kenny Show, email us at patkenny@newstalk.com. With thanks to the local enterprise offices.
If you're looking for a better tomorrow, start heading for it today. At Toyota, we started to look ahead over 20 years ago when we built our first self-charging hybrid electric cars. Now, Toyota hybrid drivers are reducing harmful emissions and making a real difference. Thanks to them, the best-selling car in Ireland today is a Toyota hybrid. And as more drivers join us, we'll all help to shape a brighter future together. Toyota, built for a better world.
2020. The year the bins went out more than you did. The year going out was to parks, not clubs. The year that online dating stayed online. The year travelling meant being allowed outside your 5K. The year Friday pints happened on Zoom. The year getting coffee was a reason to wear your good coat. The year you actually finished Netflix. We didn't get out much this year. Make the most of Christmas. Whatever you've planned, we are here. Free now. Ireland's #1 taxi app.
This year, we're here to make your Christmas and fill your senses, not just your baskets. Go for all-out outfits, even if you're staying in. Give in to that first festive bite. Give back to those who matter. And enjoy all the little things that make Christmas, Christmas. So shop smart, shop safe, here at Dundrum Town Centre.
They say happiness is time well spent with family and friends. So this Christmas, give them something to look forward to with a Press Up gift card. From the Dean to the Mason, Sophie's to the Stella, Elephant and Castle, Wow Burger, and much, much more. A Press Up gift card can be used in over 65 bars, restaurants, cinemas, and hotels all across Ireland. Good times will be here again, and at Press Up, we'll be here to help you celebrate. Pick up a gift card at pressup.ie.
The purchase of sex is illegal in Ireland. That means that if you're caught, you'll be arrested, and you'll have to explain it to your wife and children. Maybe they'll believe you think prostitution is just a job like any other, but I wouldn't count on it. The vast majority of men don't buy sex and don't buy the excuses of those who do. Prostitution, we don't buy it. Go to wedon'tbuyit.eu to learn more.
In need of a last-minute Christmas gift? Don't panic. The perfect present is within reach. A gift card from Clayton Hotels. With over 40 destinations to explore across Ireland and the UK. Give them the choice of hotel stays, dining, spa treatments or gym membership. Buy your gift cards at claytonhotels.com. Choose postage or an online voucher. No stress. Happy Christmas to you. Clayton Hotels, where every moment matters.
Get Sky Sports and Sports Extra, half price for 6 months.
What an opportunity here!
Watch old rivals take on new competition in the Autumn Nations Cup live on Premier Sports.
That's wonderful work.
Catch all the drama with exclusive international rugby.
Done it again!
Get Sky Sports, BT Sports and Premier Sports all half price for 6 months.
Oh, that's a strong finish.
Search Sky Sports sale today. New sports customers only. Standard pricing applies after 6 months or cancelling one element of the bundle. Minimum term and further terms apply.
Follow the leader, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, the world's best-selling plug-in hybrid, is now available with 0% finance and a free home charge point worth €800. Leading the charge in plug-in hybrid technology, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Book a test drive at your local dealer today. Mitsubishi, drive your ambition. Terms and conditions apply. See mitsubishimotors.ie. Lending criteria applies. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance.
Christmas Millionaire Raffle from the National Lottery is back, with one guaranteed millionaire and over 6,000 other cash prizes. Someone will wake up a millionaire on New Year's Day. Tickets are limited, so don't miss out. Pick up a ticket today in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you. Gift responsibly.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Minimal contact in stadiums shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5 o'clock. Ireland have beaten Scotland in that Nations Cup match, 31 points to 16 at Lansdowne Road. Keith Earls with a couple of tries, Cian Healy with another. So a good finish to the year for Andy Farrell, after a little bit of criticism over the last while. In the Premier League, it's Manchester City 2, Fulham 0. Goals from Sterling and De Bruyne for City, who were marching up the table. Earlier on, Burnley 1, Everton 1. Full time for the Championship, Reading 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Latest scores, Brentford 2, Blackburn Rovers 1. It's Bristol City 0, Birmingham City 0. Coventry City 2, Rotherham United 0. It's Huddersfield Town 2, QPR 0. Millwall 0, Derby County 1. Norwich City 0, Sheffield Wednesday 1. Preston North End 1, Wycombe Wanderers 1. It's Stoke City 1, Middlesbrough 0. Swansea City 1, Luton Town 0. And Watford 0, Cardiff City 1. A half-5 throw-in at Croke Park. Dublin against Cavan in the All-Ireland football semi-final, the first of them with Mayo against Tipperary tomorrow. Mossy Quinn, good afternoon.
Afternoon, John. How's things?
Yeah, not too bad. Hope you're well. It was pelting down in Dublin earlier on today. What are the conditions like now?
They're absolutely immaculate at the moment, John. Yeah, it's the two sets of squads are out walking the pitch and they're runners, and they'd be very, very happy with the scene they're walking into. It's there's a bit of a breeze, you can see from the flags behind the goal, a bit of a swirling breeze coming into the Hill 16 end, but it's calm in terms of there's not a sign of rain in the sky, so hopefully it stays like this and we've a perfect evening for football.
Brian Howard in for Johnny Cooper on the Dublin 15. Davy Byrne at full back.
Yeah, well, that's certainly what they've named anyway. So it's very unusual for Johnny Cooper not to start if he's fit. He is named among the substitutes, so it'll be interesting to see if that's the starting team that they go with. Johnny's one of the real leaders of that defence, and both with his play and in terms of his reading of the game, and he'd be one of the guys who'd make a lot of calls out there. So if he doesn't start, that's a big enough call for Dessie Farrell to have made to make the change. Now, Brian Howard's a player of real quality. He hasn't really got to the pitch of it so far this year. He's been kind of coming off the bench for 15 and 20 minutes, so if he does start, he'd be delighted to get in from the off, and big challenge against that Cavan midfield.
If Cavan are to be competitive, Mossy, because to be realistic, and we're not trying to downplay their chances, but they are rank outsiders, what do they need to do to unsettle Dublin and keep in the game?
Keeping the game, well, the start is going to be crucial for them. I think you've seen, even in Leinster in a couple of the games against Laois and Meath, Dublin have given up goal chances in the first couple of minutes. Laois hit the post with their goal chance. Meath overplayed and ended up having to settle for a point. I think Cavan need, early on, if they do get opportunities, they need to be clinical with them, and they need to try and stay in the game. For me, they probably need to break it down into quarters, even use that water break, and possibly first 15 minutes, first 17 minutes, try and keep it really tight, try and keep it compact. And they are going to have to show Dublin different looks. They can't just go into a shell and get bodies behind the ball. We've seen Dublin will deal with that. It might take them a bit longer, but they will beat that system. And I think Cavan, to be anyway effective, are going to have to show at different times. They'll have to go long with some kickouts, go short. They'll have to press on Dublin's kickouts. They'll have to let them get it. And I think if they have that level of preparation done and that level of detail, then they can ask different questions of Dublin. And like I said, staying in the game, I think it's important they get off to a good start, even for their own confidence. If Dublin go and get a goal in the first 5-7 minutes, I think it obviously adds a lot of questions straight away for Cavan. So I think the first quarter is crucial for them.
And that's been the issue with Cavan, hasn't it? They were behind against Monaghan and against Down. The key matchups today, the key battles around the pitch, where do you see them?
Well, I'm looking at the Cavan team. Like, Padraig Faulkner's been excellent for Cavan so far this year. He's named at full back, and the interesting thing will be, like, Dublin have Kieran Kilkenny named at 11 and Con O'Callaghan named at 14, but they've interchanged quite a bit. We've seen a bit more of Kieran full forward this year, and I'd expect Faulkner to go man-on-man with Kilkenny. Like, if you look at that Dublin team, like Brian Fenton, Kieran Kilkenny, Con, they're probably the three guys that have really made Dublin tick going forward so far this year. So I'd expect Cavan to have men detailed specifically for them. Will you see Killian and Brady go man-on-man with Fenton? And there's not too many reference points for people who've slowed Fenton down in the last couple of years. I know people reference Jack Barry, and he's probably done it at times for half an hour or 40 minutes, but someone is pretty much going to have to sacrifice a lot of their own game to try and stop Fenton's influence for Dublin. So I think you might see Killian Brady pick up Fenton. I expect Faulkner to pick up Kieran Kilkenny, and then again, whether it's Killian Clark or whether he'll sweep in front of Con O'Callaghan. But if Con plays at 11, we've seen he's been a threat from kickouts. He's caught kickouts and he's very direct running with the ball, and that's where Dublin goals have come from this year. I think they've 5 goals in Championship so far this year, John, and all of them have come from that running down the middle, kind of creating an overlap and drawing in a man and maybe getting it to Dean Rock or one of the finishers to slip it into a corner. They haven't really gone to that kicking game as much this year, which is something they would have relied on a bit more in previous years.
And at the other end, Mossy, Thomas Galligan, Garrett McKiernan will have to win their battles and have to win a fair share of ball to give Cavan any kind of platform.
They will, of course, yeah, and I think that's the big challenge for me. Can Cavan, it's been a long time since Dublin have come into Croke Park and haven't hit around the 20-point mark, and can Cavan get anywhere near that? And Grove McKiernan as well is going to be a huge factor in that, and he's named at 11. And again, Dublin have John Small, and John is excellent at going in and marking one of the opposition team's best players and really just going man on man and wiping out their influence, or certainly limiting their influence a lot. So I think you're going to need to see McKiernan's going to need to shake off that possibility of small marking, and Cavan will need to be really clinical. I think they had 6 wides in the first half against Donegal the last day, and I don't think they can have that type of inefficiency today. You know, they're going to need to, any chance they get, to try and stay with Dublin is going to be critical. And
there can't be any complacency from Dessie Farrell because 2011 they were in a minor final under his management against Tipperary and they lost, so that's not going to do Cavan any favours in ways. It hasn't, no, and I think probably one of the biggest strengths of this Dublin squad in recent years is their level of preparation and their commitment to preparation for every single game. And I don't know whether people outside, and I suppose when we're looking in, you're kind of wondering, do Dublin prepare the same for a Cavan or even a Leinster match as they might if they were playing Donegal today? Would Dublin be a little bit more focused? And nothing we've seen on their performance levels in the last 5 years have shown that they take the foot off the gas in the preparation no matter who they're playing. So I think that's one of the biggest testaments to this group that Jim Gavin had in place and his management, and it seems like it's continued under Dessie. So no, I don't expect, with that Dublin group of players, I don't expect there to be any complacency whatsoever. How are you calling it, Mossy?
I think it's hard not to see a Dublin win at the moment, John. I think the big thing will be how can Cavan keep it tight, that when we go into the last quarter that that the game is in the balance. And I think that for me, that's something they've managed to do, and obviously what they did against Donegal. But I just think the open spaces in Croke Park, I think Dublin will space them out a little bit more than Donegal did, and I expect Dublin to run out probably 8 or 9 points in the end.
OK, Mossy Quinn, well, thanks for speaking to us from Croke Park this afternoon ahead of Dublin and Cavan 5:30 throw-in in the All-Ireland football semi-final. Mayo against Tipperary tomorrow afternoon at 3:30. Also tomorrow we've got the North London derby live here on News Talk on Off the Ball with Nathan Murphy and Brian Kerr calling the shots. Spurs against Arsenal. Gary Breen, I'm looking at Arsenal and Arteta, and they started so well under him, so promising. They won the FA Cup. But only 10 goals in 10 games. Is it creation? Is it execution? Why have they stalled?
Well, it's a bit of both, really. I think Arteta originally goes in there to address the vulnerabilities defensively. Seems to be able to do that with a back three, just give them that little bit more security. But the upset has been too much in terms of the fact that attacking-wise, they're just so struggling now. You think about that game against Wolves where Wolves just sat back in there comfortably. Arsenal had no real creativity in that final third. In fact, the likes of Xhaka, Ceballos, those type of guys are picked in midfield ahead of Torreira, El Neni, those more defensive-minded midfielders, because they have that technical ability. But their level of passing into that final third has been so poor, it really has. Xhaka's only created one chance all season, so Ceballos not in that. So this is the real concern for Arsenal, and it keeps raising its head. Then that you're thinking, well, what do they actually need in there to be able to serve those forwards who are talented forwards if they get the right balls? And you again mentioned the likes of Ozil. But the problem is that Ozil's not even in the squads as such. He's not going to do it. Is
that looking a bit silly now, though, Gary? Is it looking silly?
Well, you make a decision at the time, and I think looking back now, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But Ozil, although he's been consistent in terms of how he plays, he never deviated it. So whether it's his fault he's not in the squad, I don't know. It's just the way that Arteta has chosen to go. I think the biggest miss, really, when you think about that win at Old Trafford, is that Thomas Partey's not been playing in that midfield, and they've missed him. They really have. But it's a worrying time. This is Arsenal's worst start to a Premier League. So all that kind of kudos achieved from winning the FA Cup, then the Community Shield as well, that seems a while ago now, because I think even Arsenal fans are starting to question Arteta.
Well, they're very vocal, our Arsenal fans. Højbjerg has been, I think, key for Spurs in giving them a fulcrum there in that midfield.
I think he's been brilliant. I really do. I think I've seen him play for Tottenham live and the qualifying game for the Europa League stages. And if you want to talk about a midfielder who can get on a half-turn and receive the ball, he's not that. He's certainly not that, even though education was done at Bayern Munich under Pep Guardiola early on in his career. But what he gives you is that real steel in there. He reads situations so well. He's one of the highest stats in terms of forcing turnovers. And he's everything that's good about a Mourinho team. The little partnership between him and Sissoko is so important in that centre midfield, in that out of possession, they drop into that back four and literally create a back six. Then that sets up the rest of the team on the quick turnovers to release the likes of Son, Kane, on the counter-attacking pace of Bergwijn as well. Bale's still not really hit the heights, but he potentially can as we go deeper into this season. That's a massive concern in this North London derby, that they'll just suck Arsenal on and then hit them on the break.
Are they defensively strong enough to contend, though, Gary, in your view, for the title? No.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant Arsenal.
Spurs.
Yeah, no, I think in this particular season, John, you won't want to hear it. You Tottenham fans are so negative. You always think the worst. But I do. I genuinely believe they can do, because of the know-how of Mourinho. Now, everyone waxed lyrical about the team that Pochettino created, that young, vibrant team. For a fraction of its cost, we're paying them less than they should be getting wages-wise. But that never, ever got near the silverware. It disbanded before it really fulfilled its potential. Now you're getting a serial winner like Mourinho, who, if you're looking at the body of work that he can potentially do from 18 months walking into the club to potentially winning the league at the end of this season, that is an incredible body of work. And I don't think many managers would have been capable of doing that.
This is like It's a Wonderful Life, the 20 days to Christmas, and there's hope for Tottenham to win the title. Lads, any football books you could recommend? The 20 days to Christmas, any football books, Dan, Johnny, you'd recommend for our audience maybe to buy? They haven't?
Obviously, Champagne Football. I think that should be required reading, I think, for every school child in Ireland, like the Ruknama in Turkmenistan. You should just be forced to read it so you can learn about how football can go so badly wrong. But obviously, I'm delighted that, you can get proper journalism to make such a difference in in an era when newspapers aren't maybe what they were. It's great to see that you can still make a big difference. Dan would have done plenty of reporting on that back in the day as well, the Vantage Club and all that. And, I think the fact that journalism can play such a massive role in change, and I think obviously Champion Football is part of that. I love Robert Enke's book. That's my favourite football book. It's probably not a Christmas book necessarily. And as well as that, the one on Cloughie is that I Believe in Miracles, in the Nottingham Forest story of their amazing winning the European Cups and all that. That time when, literally, it's only not that long ago, the Nottingham Forest players would be having a skip full of pints like the night before a big game, just completely different era. But that's a brilliant read as well. So they'd be also Eamon Sweeney's There's Only One Red Army as well. Give that an honourable mention. A great book.
Is that about United? Is it?
It's about Sligo Rovers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's actually that's an excellent recommendation. I have to say, it's
not sure you'll be able to buy it, but
yeah, that's the only slight problem, maybe an issue. Johnny mentioned that I Believe in Miracles, and that was what I was thinking of. So I'm looking at my bookshelves in the distance here, trying to remember something else. I think I mentioned it before, back at the start of lockdown, back whenever that was that 4 years ago or something. The Garincha book, which is, there's, like, as you mentioned, Champagne Football, and there's another book called Fell by Andrew Jennings, which is about FIFA corruption and explaining how the world works there. And I suppose that's all heavy reading. That's more, it's hard going, and it would nearly depress you. How the game has been ruined in certain places to some degree by greed and other factors. But for something a bit different, the book on Garincha, the little bird as he was known, and he was obviously the tortured genius who was the star of the Brazil team, a real star of the Brazil team, particularly in 1962, but really struggled in later life with alcoholism and other issues. But it's a really good sort of biography of someone who lived a fascinating life with the Brazilian team at a time when they were, they travelled around. They were almost like a Harlem Globetrotters sort of existence, playing for Brazil back then. And he lived a good life, and he had a sort of a checkered life. But it's a really good read. So I would recommend. I'm actually looking up the specific title of it now. But if you type in Garincha book, I think it's something to do with Little Bird or something in the title. I would recommend that heartily, for sure.
The Damned United, I think, is a very good read, David Peace, whether it's true or not. And obviously there's a bit of artistic licence in some parts of it, because it's interpretation of fact as fiction. Brilliant Orange on Dutch Football is a great book. Eamon Dunphy's book, Only a Game, is an excellent book. Even in April and May, I bought about 15 to 20 football books. I haven't read any of them yet because we haven't had the time to do anything. But even like you had Arthur Hopcraft's book there, Dan, reading it out there one day, A Football Man.
A Football Man, it's really good. Yeah, if that's as I think I mentioned at the time, it's fantastic. It's a book. It's basically like live interviews from the 60s of George Best and various people, but not like a lot of the stuff you read about Best and Alf Ramsey and all this is all retrospective, but this was stuff that was done at the time by a top class sort of feature writer who got the chance to go and spend time on them and profile them, and it's really, really good. That's it's exceptional. Maybe it's a bit of an acquired taste to some degree, the style of it, but once you get through it, you'll get great stuff out of it. The Garincha book is the triumph and tragedy of Brazil's forgotten footballing hero, Rui Castro. So yeah, it's readily available there on online channels if people want to look for it. I recommend that.
Provided You Don't Kiss Me, Duncan Hamilton on his relationship with Brian Clough is an excellent book I'd recommend. And there's a load of ones that I think seem to be generally renowned as good books. I haven't read these ones, like Football Against the Enemy, Simon Cooper, Jonathan Wilson's book about Brian Clough, The Ball is Round, David Goldblatt, The Glory Game, Hunter Davies, A Season with Verona by Tim Parks, and The Miracle of Castel di Sango, 2 books about Italian football. To speak about legends, Gary, we haven't spoken to him since Diego passed. Very sad, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was sad, wasn't it? And the great documentaries and stuff and the articles since have been incredible. You get reminded of just what an incredible player he was. Absolute genius. Speaking of
this week and what's happened in the last few days, the fan protests at Celtic, guys, were they beyond the line? Does Neil Lennon deserve a bit more respect as a club legend than what he's been getting, or is it just the way people should be entitled to legitimately protest even if there is a pandemic?
Listen, it's a very strange time for football supporters, because normally, you know, you would have the opportunity to voice your unhappiness within a stadium, just very naturally. And in fact, there's probably managers and players and stuff who've been very fortunate at times that they haven't had that. You know, they're used to being sort of barracked down a tunnel or whatever it might be. And you know, clearly there's a weight of unhappiness there that the fans chose to do. And listen, of course, they shouldn't have done it by rights, as you mentioned, in a pandemic. It should not have happened. You know, all you can do is condemn it and say it's wrong, etc., etc. You know, but you know the place where it comes from. Like, there's obviously a serious passion for the club that the Celtic fans have. It's a big year for them, and normally they would just do that in a stadium after a match and let people know what they think of them. And obviously they went to do it in this particular way because they can't do that. You know, overall, there's just a general sadness that if it does come to pass that Neil Lennon's time at the club finishes this way. But football is unsentimental at times when it comes to this stuff, and it's why those handful of people, whoever get to leave on their own terms, you know, Alex Ferguson and whoever it might be, I mean, they're the 0.0001% in terms of that. Generally, the game is far more painful than that when it comes to pass. And sure, in 5 years' time, Neil Lennon will be welcomed back with a great ovation. But it's pretty raw on the here and now because of how really, really bad they've been. I mean, their decline has been pretty, wow. Like, you know, some of their results and performances are not just a blip, it's a bit more than that.
You got to love the audience. Aaron has texted in, everyone should read The Football Man by Arthur Hopcroft, and he actually gives a quote from the book, and he's texted in, fair play to you, Aaron, on 53106. From The Football Man, what happens on the football field matters, not in the way food matters, but as poetry does to some people and alcohol does to others. It engages the personality, it has conflict and beauty, and when those two qualities are present together in something offered for public appraisal, they represent much of what I understand to be art. There you go.
Yeah, it's beautifully put. It's probably been one of those years when people have had a lot of time to read football books. I think there probably are a bit too many of them, JD. But something I wanted to bring in just for the end of the show. Yeah. Today was a big day. If I'm right now, this kid was making his debut today. His name is John Joe Patrick Finn, right? And this guy was signed up as a kid for Real Madrid, but his dad is from Galway. He spent a lot of his summers in Ballyhaunis, which of course is most known for Nathan Murphy being from there. And he came off the bench for Getafe today in a game in La Liga against Levante. I'm not sure what age he is, 17 or 18. But essentially an Irish-Spanish kid who made his debut in La Liga today and has strong connections to the west of Ireland, with his dad being from Galway. So apparently was not deemed good enough to get a trial with an underage Irish team, I'm told, as well. But big day for him anyway.
Absolutely, and well said, Johnny. Kyle Muckean on Twitter, the Cups are coming home to Oriel Park tomorrow on the 18-plus ruling. This is a good thing. People are quick to forget some of the best success stories cut their teeth domestically. McLean, Coleman, Stevens, for example, north of the border to Macaulay and Dallas, for example. But snobbery is rife among armchair fans. That is from Ross Campbell on Twitter. Gary, Chelsea Leeds, I can't wait for this tonight. Leeds are so refreshing to watch, and Chelsea been banging in the goals, so should be fascinating.
Yeah, we're talking about looking back into great football matches. You think about Chelsea Leeds, that weren't for the faint-hearted, was it? Those games back a few years back. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'd be interesting to see who gets a nod at centre forward. Olivier Giroud was incredible against Seville in midweek. 4 goals, right foot, left foot header, penalty. Makes a mockery really of just the fact he's only played 47 minutes in the Premier League this season at 34. Just seems to not be aging. And what an option that Frank Lampard now has with, like, say, Werner, Tammy Abraham, and him as well. So Chelsea have an abundance of attacking talent. Their Achilles heel last year was defensively, but they've addressed that with a goalkeeper, Mendy. This is a goalkeeper now who saves points rather than gives them away. And, of course, Silva at centre-half with all his experience, his know-how, has just got a real calm and authority back there. The struggles there defensively, now they've had 8 clean sheets in the last 10 games. But Leeds will test that today because we've seen how full of energy, verve, drive that they are. So that'd be a brilliant game.
Dan, we didn't get your verdict on the Cup Final. How do you see it going?
I still think ultimately Rovers have had a better... I take Johnny's point about maybe being undercooked to some degree, but I think they've just had a better, more stable preparation. And I mean, a lot of strange stuff with Dundalk at the moment with player contracts and a lot up in the air. And I'm not sure how that's all been going. And I just feel maybe Rovers are in a better place to deliver the results. Oh, I mentioned one thing before we go as well. Nathan Collins scoring for Stoke today in the championship against Middlesbrough. I mean, Nathan Collins
and Jason Knight.
Yeah, and Jason, has he scored as well? Yeah, I mean,
Nathan he scored. He put Derby 1-0 up, so that's a brilliant one for the young Irish lads.
But like Nathan, I see that at Jason Knight. I mean, Nathan Collins is only 19. He's been around for a couple of seasons, but he's a defender with a terrific chance. Like he's got a. I know actually Nathan Collins and Jason Knight were both in a similar age group at Dublin, underage, under 14, I think. And I heard from the coach of that team about how they all, I know we're coming up towards the end of the show, but there was a lot of homework and stuff they used to do. That Stephen Rice was the coach, who's now actually gone from Shamrock Rovers to Crystal Palace. But I think they were 13, 14, and the players were all given books. They'd go home and they could like write in things they need to improve on and various little things. And listen, it's not for everyone, particularly lads at that age. But Stephen Rice did point out to me that two kids who had a great attitude towards it were Nathan Collins and Jason Knight. They always wanted to learn. They always wanted to improve. And there we are now, you know, a few years later on a Saturday afternoon, they're scoring at a really good level. And they're both meant to be like great lads. So I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be around for a while. And Nathan has slipped under the radar. I mean, Jason Knight's obviously been in the senior squad, but Nathan's playing with the 21s. But yeah, I think we'll be talking a lot about him.
You are also great lads, Dan McDonnell, Johnny Ward and Gary Breen. Thanks so much for this afternoon. Speak soon.
Thanks guys.
Thank you.
Okay, OTB Football Saturday, as always, great stuff with the lads. Just full times, Burnley 1, Everton 1 earlier in the Premier League. It has ended Manchester City 2, Fulham 0 in the Premier League. De Bruyne and Sterling for City. 5:30 West Ham against Man United and Chelsea against Leeds at 8 o'clock. Full time in the Championship, Reading 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Goals and scores coming up to full time. These are latest scores I'm going to give you now. Brentford 2, Blackburn Rovers 2, Bristol City 0, Birmingham City 1. It's Coventry City 3, Rotherham United 1, Huddersfield Town 2, QPR 0. It's Millwall 0, Derby County 1. Jason Knight with that goal. Norwich City 2, Sheffield Wednesday 1, Preston North End 1, Wycombe Wanderers 2, Stoke City 1, Middlesbrough 0. Nathan Collins with the goal, as the lads were saying there. Swansea City 2, Luton Town 0, and Watford 0. Cardiff City 1. Don't forget, Off the Ball Sunday tomorrow with Joe Malloy from 1 o'clock. We'll bring you live and exclusive commentary of the North London Derby. Nathan Murphy and Brian Kerr calling the shots for the showdown between Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal from the new White Hart Lane. Matt Williams and Colm Keysday will join us for the Sunday paper review. We'll have updates as well from the All-Ireland Senior Football semi-final between Mayo and Tipperary. Andy Moran is at Croke Park. Clean O'Connor will be at Parnell Park as well to keep us updated on the ladies semi-final involving Cork and Galway. If you missed any of our football chat with Gary Breen, Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward, you'll be able to find the podcast of it later on tonight on the OTB Sports app. Search OTB Sports in your app store now to download it for the app on iOS and Android or wherever you get your pods. Thanks so much for tuning in this afternoon. We will speak next week out of the hurling final. Bye-bye.